Hi guys, it's day 84 and it's me. This quite a short video, hopefully you'll be glad to hear today, and it's quite an interesting one. There's lots that I could talk about from the Old Testament and the New and what have you, but just felt really led today to talk on one particular aspect. And earlier today God sort of led me to this whole theme, I suppose. And then I read my Bible in a year, and God spoke to me again through this, and the same theme came through. So I'm just going to stick with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Numbers chapter 20. We're going to look at from verse 2 onwards, mainly just the one section from verse 2 to verse 12. So only a short bit we're looking at. Verse 2, I just want to read a little bit to you, verse 2 to 4. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. They quarrelled with Moses and said, "If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert, that we and our livestock should die here? Why bring us out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." So basically, the Israelite community, they're all just complaining. They're moaning to Moses and Aaron because they're running out of water in this desert. They don't have fruit or grapes and all these things, and they're basically they're unhappy, they're complaining. They're being ungrateful, really. That's what I wanted to highlight. Because despite the fact that they're struggling with those things, they've struggled for years through the desert. They've been at times without food, and God's always provided. But at this point, they're just disregarding everything God's done for them so far, disregarding everything Moses and Aaron have done for them so far, and really just being ungrateful. And I think we can be like that. I think sometimes we can have things in our lives that crop up, and we can be unhappy, and we can be ungrateful to people. We can be really ungrateful to God as well. And I know that I've had times in my life where I've done that, where I've forgotten and disregarded everything that God's done for me and chosen to complain. You know, I really like something Laura said in her video last week about how dare we complain and grumble to God. Like, do we not know who he is and everything he's done for us? If we just take our salvation alone, that is just something incredible that we can never really repay God for, because it's just too much. It's just too big. And you know, obviously at this time, God's brought them out of slavery, just like Jesus brought us out of slavery. God has brought them out of slavery, out of Egypt. And they're moaning. And I think we sometimes do the same thing. They're looking back here. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to this terrible place? They're free in this place. They might not have water at this point. They may have struggled for food. They may have been wandering, but they're free people. And they would, at this point, would rather look back and think about when they were slaves. And sometimes we do that as well. I think we sometimes think, well, why God have you brought me from those things? Why God can I not do what I want all the time? Or and then we complain and moan about God, because actually, you know, I have this sticker in my old Bible that says sometimes that the things that are supposed to liberate us are the things that enslave us. And the things that are supposed to free us, actually, the things that put us in shackles, really. And sometimes it seems more free to be living the world of the life of a non-Christian. But we're actually all very much in bondage like that. And so that's how I feel that this situation can relate to us, and how what the Israelites are doing here can relate to us. And I hope I'm not the only person that does that. And sometimes, you know, lets the enemy step in and I suppose our flesh step in and make us regret, because it's definitely not anything we should regret, knowing Jesus and being set free by him. At this point, the Israelites have been wandering the desert for 37 years. And I think they've got grumpy, they've got fed up, and they're moaning. But the fact is, the reason they've been wandering the desert for 37 years is because their ancestors and their own sin, their fathers, their brothers, all the sin that the Israelite community have committed along the journey have made them be there that long. it's their own fault. And again, it's also like that. I think sometimes when we crop against situations, we moan and we're ungrateful to God. More often than not, we've put ourselves in that situation. And it's no good blaming other people. It's no good blaming God. And we need to be able to take account. We need to be able to be responsible for our own actions and really reflect on what we've done to get in that place. And then, you know, God will usually do what God always does, what he promises to, never leave us or forsake us, and he always helps us up. And really, that's ultimately grace, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. Is today I was listening to a song by a band called Casting Crowns, and I can't remember the name of the song, but I'm going to check my iPod in a minute, and I'm going to post the video as well. When I post this video, I'll post the video for the song as well with some lyrics. And this one line stood out to me when I was listening to the song today, and it said, I dragged your name back through the mud that you first found me in. And that's kind of like what the Israelites are doing here, and what we do, is that we're ungrateful to God, and particularly for us as well, when we do certain things, when we let ourselves down, when we miss the mark and we sin, sometimes it can be a real damaging witness as well to others, because they will associate God with the things that we're doing, and they'll associate being a Christian or church, and we can really, really tarnish the name of God. But also it's just that whole ungratefulness that we drag God's name back through the mud for the stuff that he's pulled us out of, you know. And it's like what they're doing here. Why did you bring us out of Egypt? To me, it really sort of linked. But what I really want to tell you about is that, you know, people talk about the Old Testament and God of the Old Testament, and he's a cruel God, and he's an unkind God, and he's a wrathful God. But he's really just God as he always has been and always will be. And there's grace. He's still a graceful God. Yes, he's holy. But just like Alwyn said on Sunday, he sits on a throne of grace. And it amazes me, the next part of the story. Firstly, I just wanted to give credit to Aaron and Moses, because at this point, when the Israelites were so ungrateful to God and them for bringing them out of Egypt, I would probably want to slap them, especially as they've had to put up with 37 years of wandering the desert because these people won't listen. But they showed grace. Aaron and Moses showed grace. They went straight to seek God. They went straight to the tent of meeting. They fell face down, and I thought that was an incredible testament to their character. And at that point, God's glory appeared, and it made me think: had they lost their temper, had they actually gone and slapped somebody, or had they lost their temper and been horrible to the Israelites when they were being horrible to them, and they were being ungrateful, and they must have had such a righteous anger. Surely they must have been so angry on behalf of God as well. But they restrained themselves. Had they not done that, they would have missed out, because they wouldn't have gone to the temple, led face down, and God wouldn't have blessed them with his glory and his presence. So it just goes to show that sometimes not sometimes, surely always, it's not right to react in our flesh. We need to really seek God and think, you know, what is the right thing to do, and seek God before we act. God shows amazing grace to the Israelites. He basically tells Moses and Aaron what they need to do to create a miracle, to get God to provide water. But not just to provide water, but he wanted to show the Israelites this water appearing. So he gives them the instructions, and I just can't believe that rather than God complaining and telling them, no, I'm saying no, they're not having water till they behave themselves, or they're not having water till they apologise. God's not like that. God is so graceful to them, despite these years and years of them being disobedient. And so he blesses them with water. So I just wanted to read a little bit to you. So Moses and Aaron gathered the temple together in front of the rock. Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels. Must we bring water out of this rock? Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. I thought that was amazing. The water just didn't trickle, it gushed. And isn't God's grace just so like that? It doesn't just trickle, it doesn't just drip out. God's grace just gushes out and covers us and overflows. And I think, you know, we all need that. And I think we need to remember that God's grace can cover all things. That's not something to abuse, but we just need to, again, just be amazed at how graceful he can be to us. And I think that's what really struck me, that in amongst all the Old Testament, you know, we can find the grace of God. He's not two different people. There isn't one God in the Old Testament and a different God in the New Testament. God is God. He is consistent. But we just got to sort of like look in a different way for these moments of grace. But like any good father, God has also got to discipline us. And it's such a shame that this story ends in the way it does. Verse 12, it says, "But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honour me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I gave them." And basically, going back, in verse 8, God actually told Moses, take the staff. He told them to speak to the rock, and before their eyes it will pour out, the water will pour out. So he said take the staff, but he said to speak. Now, poor Moses, we know that from way back before, speaking is not his favourite thing to do. That's why, you know, he used Aaron a lot to try and speak for him, because he had a problem with this. And it's such a shame that I think that Moses let himself down here after these years of just being so faithful and serving, and he let himself down here because he didn't do that. It said that he raised his arm and he struck the rock twice with his staff. Now, God still blessed the Israelites with the miracle of the water, which I think is quite amazing, considering Moses was disobedient. He could have really, really embarrassed Moses and decided not to send the water, but he didn't. Again, his grace is there. And equally, he could be so angry, he could say to Moses, well, no, the Israelites are going to forever wander. They're never going to reach the promised land. But he doesn't do that. He just says to Moses and Aaron that they won't take them there. Which is really sad for Moses and Aaron. But it just does remind us that we need to be obedient to God. We need to follow instructions. If he gives us instructions and they're specific, then we need to follow them specifically, because they are like that for a reason. And although God's grace can be totally amazing and overwhelming, he still needs to discipline us, and that's not something we need to be angry about or resentful. Because Moses continued to be faithful and serve God and look after the Israelites as best as he could. But we just need to remember, like any good father, there'll be moments of overwhelming grace where God needs to just pour that out on us. But there'll also be moments where he needs to discipline us. I just want to end with just saying that if you're in a position or a place you find yourself now, or maybe you're watching this video another time, where you've strayed from God, or you feel you've let him down, and you find it hard to maybe face him, just listen to the track, the Casting Crowns track that is going to be put on. Have a look at the lyrics in that. That's just a really, really moving song that just makes you realise that God is our Father, and he's our daddy, and he just wants to look after us. And you know, we all fall short, but we need to come back to God. We need to take the telling off sometimes, but we still need to serve him, because he has got grace and love, and so much love for us. And the more we put it off, the worse it will be. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And I hope that you've got something out of the video, and I hope that you'll get something out of that song as well. And that's it for me. And maybe next video, maybe there'll be a baby here as well. Hopefully. All right then, I'll see you. Good night.